All right, we are going to reconvene. It's 6:30. It's Monday, March 11th, 2024. This is a regular meeting of the Oregon School District Board of Education. We are at the OSD Innovation Center at Oregon High School. Earlier, we had a committee of the whole, so we opened the meeting, did a proof of notice, and approved the agenda. So I will move on with the consent calendar. In the consent calendar, we have two things. One, we have two retirements. Laura Brudos, who will retire effective June 10th, which is the end of the school year, has served our district for 26 years as a Spanish teacher and instructional coach. And then Carrie Janes is also retiring at that time after 28 years of service for the Oregon School District on our early childhood program. So we want to thank Carrie and Laura for their long-term service to the students and families of the Oregon School District, and we wish them well when they retire this June. And then also have the following donations, and all of these donations are for the administrative scholarship. It's Candace Widensee, Amy Miller, Shannon Anderson, Carrie Majeski, Leslie Bergstrom, Erica Mundinger, and Brittany Spencer Grant all contributed $100 to that admin scholarship. And then we have a $20 donation from Ross and Tracy Waddell for the National Junior German Honor Society. So we thank those individuals. Many are here tonight for their donations in support of our students. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, moving on to C, information items. First item on that agenda is public comment, and we do have someone here for public comment, so I am going to read that policy. Just one second. District Policy 180.05 provides an opportunity for the public to address the board. We value the public comment period and feedback from our stakeholders. To comply with open meetings law and to ensure consistency, public comment will have the following parameters. Speakers will have 3 minutes in which to make their comments. Ms. Katie Heitz will signal the speaker when their time is up. The board will not comment after each speaker and will reserve discussions to any items on the agenda, and speakers are welcome to stay for the meeting. Next steps following public comment may include referral to the appropriate administrator for follow-up with the speaker or placement of the matter on a future board agenda. But the first public speaker as part of public comment is our superintendent, because we have a very special award, and then we have a little guest speaker that's going to talk to that award too. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Bergstrom.
Thank you. We are really happy tonight to speak publicly about an award that our colleague Gina Jonan received a couple of weeks ago at one of the state conventions for school attorneys. And we were very proud to nominate her for this very prestigious school attorney award. And I believe Mr. Zock will be talking about this just a little bit. But before he does, I'd like to read just a portion of the letter that we sent in as part of the nomination process. In addition to Gina's role in leading human resources, she routinely counsels district leadership in making the best possible decisions for our students that are legally sound. Gina works with our school board and facilitates the district's policy committee. She ensures that policies are up to date and proactively advocates for innovation. For example, and this is a big one, Gina was a co-author of the Oregon School District Anti-Hate Speech Policy, one of the first standalone policies of its kind in the state of Wisconsin. And she's a very important part of the district's administrative team. She's continually sought out as a leader on strategic planning and projects that require complex thinking. Gina is a compassionate teammate and always willing to give her time to others in service of ultimately creating the best possible learning environment for kids. Gina is known for the phrase, "Let's find a way to say yes." While this is often challenging and takes an incredible amount of additional time and energy, Gina's philosophy and approach yields dividends to the students and families of our district.
All right, I think we do have one public comment, and that is Mr. Zock. Do you want to come to the microphone and be on that side of the table for a change? State your name and your address, please, so we know that you live in the district.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. You did a lot of things for the district over the last, 12 years, but one of them was manning the mic and helping us do that. It's good to be before you tonight. It's much nicer on this side of the table. There are a couple of you I don't know, but I'm Steve Zock. I reside at 330 East Richards Road in Oregon, Wisconsin, and I want to say a couple things about the Tipler Award that Gina got. First, from a professional standpoint, I am a lawyer and I work at Boardman and Clark, and part of our law firm contains a large school law segment, and I've been part of that group since probably 2010, 2011, and so I've been a member of the Wisconsin School Attorneys Association since that time because I worked with our school law group. That is a group that is comprised of all attorneys across the state who practice school law on behalf of public and private schools, and it's a big group, and it's a very good and active group. The Tipler Award is their Heisman Trophy award, and it's more than a Heisman Trophy because a Heisman Trophy celebrates excellence over 1 year, whereas the Tipler is a career-based award that not only focuses on excellence in practice, but also recognizes commitment to public schools, professionalism, high standard of ethics. And so that's a really coveted award. I know we had a couple people in our firm got it, and it was a big deal. So this should be recognized by the residents of this district as an incredible honor for one of your team members to get. So congratulations. It's a really big deal. I remember when we hired, I'm going to talk personally now, and gong me if I get 3 minutes, but I just want to give you a little background about Gina. Back in 2010, Andy will remember this, we were trying to fill the human resources position. We didn't have a full-time dedicated human resources director, and so I think we had 2 failed searches because we couldn't find the right person, and I was the board representative on the second interview committees, and we thought we had a candidate, and that Dr. Bustler and I at that time just didn't think that was going to be a great match, wasn't going to be the fit we wanted, even though the person was really super well qualified. It wasn't going to be a match, so we went back out. About a week later, I got a call from Brian, and he said, "I've got an interesting application for you." And I said, "Well, who's that?" And I said, "Do you know Gina Jonan?" And I said, "Yeah, I do," because at that time Gina was employed by WEAC. At that time, WEAC and us weren't sending Valentine's cards together. We had really interesting bargaining sessions prior to Act 10. Let's just put it that way. And, to hire as a management attorney for the Oregon School District from WEAC was a big deal. And so Brian wanted to run that by me before we moved forward. He wanted, because he knew I practiced in the school law area, said, "Would you be comfortable hiring somebody from WEAC?" And that was never an issue with me or for Brian, because we both knew Gina. Number one, we knew Gina from a legal perspective, and she was one of the brightest lawyers in the state, and one of the brightest ones who did school law. And we also knew her as being a people person and highly ethical. So we knew that if she became part of this district, that affiliation would not matter, because that was not on an agenda. Of fidelity to ethics and people and fidelity to the law was always going to come first. So we hired Gina through that process and created a new position of in-house legal counsel and HR director. So she took that and ran with it, and kind of created the position on the fly. So, looking back over time, you see every once in a while your decisions came out right, and Gina, ours did.
Thank you, Steve. So on behalf of the board, we know that we're very fortunate, but congratulations on achieving the George Tipler Award and being awarded with that. So congratulations, Gina. Would you like to make any comments?
I would. So thank you. I'm obviously very humbled and very honored. And I just want to say to Steve personally, just thank you, and Brian for taking a chance on me, and to Deidre Atkinson for being very persuasive and getting me to apply. I'm just grateful every day that I get to be here and work with this amazing team that we have. And just a special thank you to Ms. Mundinger and Dr. Bergstrom and Ms. Flanagan for nominating me. It was truly an honor and a great surprise. And I just love my job every day. So thank you, everyone.
All right. Is there anyone else here for public comment? Anyone else here for public comment? Okay, moving on to C2 OEA report. Is anyone here from the OEA? Okay, so no report. And then our students are too busy with spring activities, so we do not have a student report tonight. So we will move on to teaching and learning update, and we have the Skills USA group here. So I'll have Dr. Bergstrom call them up to give a little preface and call them up to the microphone.
Yes, we're so excited they're here. They were actually, I believe, at UW Stout last week, competing 2 weeks ago. Okay. And they were quite successful. And so they are here to share a little bit about their learning journey with us, along with their teacher, Mr. Hawkinson. And I believe Mr. Stace is also involved, but you are representing the team tonight.
So thank you so much. My name is Eric Hawkinson. I'm a high school tech ed teacher here since 2009. Man, time goes flying by. Anyways, we're here on behalf of Skills USA. I did not have this opportunity when I was in high school. I did not even know that Skills USA existed or what previously was called VICA. When I became a technology educator or was learning to be one in college, somebody came and presented about Skills USA and the trades and being able to compete in welding, architecture, robotics. And I was angry. I was like, where was this when I was in high school? So I was committed to wherever I got an opportunity to teach, we were starting this club in this professional organization. And we've had success over the years. And today I just wanted to share about what Skills USA is, bring in some amazing people that have been competing throughout the year. And yeah, so I'll turn it over to them. Say who you are, what you compete in, and why you like it.
Hi, I'm Toshi, exchange student from Taiwan. I like Skills USA because it is a chance for me to have a field trip, and besides from that, I can meet friends with the same interest and meet outside the school, and I can have a chance to know about the college here.
Hi, my name is Anish Patel, and I'm a freshman here at Oregon High School, and I do team engineering for Skills USA. And I think my favorite part I have two favorite parts of the competition. To begin with, I just love getting to experience creativity, and I just love to create things and to design and engineer, and I just get to see that through Skills USA. And on top of that, I get to make great connections because when competing at a Skills USA competition, we meet all kinds of people from all over the state. And it's just such an experience to get to see all these people and communicate with people that have the same interests as you.
I'm Brady Bartlett. I'm also a freshman, and I also compete in team engineering with Anish. And it's a lot of fun to be creative and work on a problem and find a solution. It's a lot of fun to then test your solution and see how it works out, and see other ideas from other teams, and just take a trip with friends and meet new people. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to think outside of the box with engineering.
My name is Morgan Spindler. I'm a senior here at Oregon, and I'm also the chapter president of Skills USA. I compete in multiple different events just depending on availability. I do robotics, urban search and rescue with my robotics partner Jackson Walsh, and then like electronics, technology related technical math, computer programming. But one of my favorite things about Skills is just the sheer amount of regionals that Oregon goes to. And because we go all over the state and there's just so many new people you get to meet and who all have the same interests as you. And it's just a great opportunity.
My name is Sean Panzer. I'm a junior here at Oregon High School, and I compete in related technical math. And I don't get to compete as often as I want to because of my job and some other extracurriculars. I already have that fixed for next year, so it's not happening again. But my favorite part and the reason why I joined isn't necessarily the competitions. It's because I really enjoy learning about several different aspects, and the competitions give me kind of like a goal to work towards. So at the start of this year, I didn't really know much about auto or engines or anything like that, but just the idea that there was a competition, I wanted to learn more, so I've learned a ton about that, and I plan to compete in that next year along with computer programming and then whatever else I find interesting.
So just concluding, thank you so much for your time and just trying to share the awareness about Skills USA, and thank you for always supporting career and technical education and student organizations in tech ed.
Great, thank you. And thank you to you and Mr. Stace. You know, it's a really important, we know, even though we don't know much all that you all know about education, we know that it's about connections for kids, and that happens inside and outside the classroom. And, you know, based on what they've all said and all the kids that you have success with, you're doing amazing work and giving these kids something really special that they can carry with them for the rest of their lives. So thank you for your commitment to this program. Thank you guys for coming. Okay, moving on to, oh, sorry.
May I speak about this?
Sure.
I'm sorry, this was an early teaching and learning section, so I didn't let Ms. Flanagan know that I'd like to say something else connected to our wonderful Skills USA students and advisors. And that is, I hope when you were listening to them, you were thinking to yourself about Portrait of a Graduate. Because really what they were talking about is the exemplification of Portrait of a Graduate, right? All of the critical and creative thinking, the ability to make connections with one another, to work as a team, to understand complex problems. That's everything that we have in Portrait. And this is a great example of that. And in front of your desk or on your place tonight, you see the professional journal that the high school puts together every year called Forward. And it's really about forwarding their theory of action, which is our Portrait of a Graduate, perhaps worded in a slightly different way, but it's accomplishing the exact same thing. We have the same aim. And then Ms. Flanagan wrote the foreword for Forward on Portrait of a Graduate. So I just really think that what you saw from them tonight and what you will be able to read in the foreword, which is a series of articles based on the teaching and learning experiences of the staff here at the high school in connection to their theory of action, I think you will find it very inspiring, and you'll see that what the students spoke about tonight is alive and well in all places in the high school. I also want to point out that there's a little bookmark, and on the bookmark there's a QR code to every previous version of the foreword. This is actually volume 4. So there have been many opportunities for our high school professionals to share with others all that they are learning and doing on behalf of our students, alongside our students.
I'm glad you brought that up. You know, thanks to Andrea, Brad, and Jim for putting this together each time. And if you've got a high schooler, you know, you just got the Panther Press email from Jim, and he put a link to all the parents, for all the parents to read forward, which I think was really great too. This is, you know, a really great example of all the good things that are happening in the Oregon School District and public schools. So I'm really happy that we're getting more forward with sharing this with people. So, okay. Now we can maybe move on to the action item part of the meeting. Anyone else have anything they want to share? Okay, moving on to action items, which are really important tonight. We have first one, which is the 2024-2025 staffing plan. So I will turn that over to Dr. Bergstrom and then Ms. Jonan also.
Thank you. The staffing plan for tonight, this is actually the second version because we brought it forward 2 weeks ago in order to give the board a preview of what we would be asking them to act upon this evening, allow an opportunity for feedback, and an opportunity to hear your questions because you've always been great clarifiers of our thinking. So this evening we're going back with some slight adjustments based on feedback, and Ms. Jonan will walk you through the report, and then we will get to the point where you're able to make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bergstrom. So you all have the purple in front of you, and I appreciate that. The financial picture is the same as we talked about last meeting, so I will gloss over that. I think the key part is that we estimate we have $388,000 available for recurring positions. So when you will see the positions in the tables, those are estimated cost based on average of the staff we hire. Obviously, sometimes it'll be a little bit less and other times it might be a little bit more, but we take great care to be conservative in our estimate because we don't want to go over. And so what we would ask the board tonight is that you approve the positions in Table A and Table B in Section 3, subject to available funding. And I'll explain that more in a moment. So looking at Table A, we are asking the board to approve up to 2 positions in special education for early childhood. We are still evaluating our needs in that area, but as you can imagine, positions in special education are very hard to fill. So we are looking for authority to fill that should we need to, if our numbers reach that threshold. We are looking to add 2 additional special ed teacher positions, one in Brooklyn and one in Forest Edge, and that is based on the numbers that we know right now. We have a need for those positions, and we anticipate those numbers may increase, but we feel comfortable with that staffing level recommendation. We are looking to make our school psychologist permanent at Oregon High School. So we talked about last time, she is on a grant position for this year. That grant is going away. And so the idea was for her to train staff in other buildings, increase their capacity, and then we're asking for next school year that she revert back to traditional school psychologist work at the high school. And the numbers of students that we have on our 504 plans is increasing, and the school psychologist takes the lead on those plans. And then with our student needs increasing, looking to add a school social worker at the 4K6 level. And part of that is due to our rising need in early childhood and just having social workers in multiple buildings. It has been a significant workload between 7 4K sites and then other elementary schools. So we feel that that is the best way we can meet our needs in early childhood and elementary school from a student services perspective. And lastly, with that increase in early childhood, looking to make our 4K director a full-time position. She spends a significant amount of time working in special education and being the lead on IEPs, and those numbers have increasingly or have continued to increase. And those are the students that we know now that are in the 3-year-old program, and so we do expect that to be even more once we go through the child find and evaluation process. So not surprisingly, our priority positions are in student mental health and in fulfilling the legal obligation that we have to students with IEPs, and also trying to keep those caseloads reasonable so that kids can get that individual attention that they need. So we are looking for approval for those positions, as well as there are 2 one-time funding positions that we are asking the board to approve. And the building substitutes, and you'll hear more about that in our professional sustainability task force report, but that is something that we have received significant feedback from our staff and our administrators about the sub shortage continuing. We had hoped that we might be in a little bit better position this year, and so we did not include those positions for this school year, but the labor market has not changed, and our fill rates have still stayed around 80%, which is a significant demand on our staff and our administrators. So we are hoping to do another short-term solution and approve building subs out of one-time money with the hope that we can find a longer-term solution. And you'll hear more about that in our sustainability task force. But for example, could we look at having a different type of calendar that might decrease the amount of absences we have due to illness? And then we also have an increasing number of students that come to us that have where English is not their first language. And we are looking as a short-term solution to hire a multilingual paraprofessional to help meet the needs in the classroom while we evaluate a longer-term solution for that program as well. And Mr. Planner and his team are studying that and putting together a long-term plan for the next year. So then moving into Table B, we have 2 particular needs that we feel we can address with one-time funding for this school year, again, while we study a longer-term solution. And so we are asking the board for 1 year to approve a part-time band teacher. We have a huge increase in the students that are taking band, which is wonderful. And Ms. Yeager does a fantastic job. It is getting more difficult for her to give the individual attention for the band students, with having 60 more students in the program now than we had a few years ago. And that is part of the Portrait of a Graduate. And so just looking to see, can we support those students with small group instruction on an interim basis, again, while we look for a longer term solution, and to see if that participation rate stays consistent, which we anticipate that it will. So we just want a little bit more time to study and see what a future program may look like, as well as having a 1-year math teacher position. Our numbers at the high school aren't significantly different, but math is another one of those subjects where you can't just have even sections, right? You need to meet kids where they are in their math instruction. And so we need to address growing sections, particularly in algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. Otherwise, even with overloads, we're still looking at class sizes above 30 in those classes, as well as providing algebra support to students coming to us from the middle school that just need a little bit extra help in algebra. So again, looking for a one-year solution to that while we continue to evaluate with the numbers, with our birth rates declining and us having smaller class sizes moving through. Is that something that we can maybe address with a reallocation somewhere else in the future while we study those trends? And then we are looking for approval of 2 additional positions if there is recurring money available. And so these are positions that we don't necessarily need to add right now because we don't need to hire them on the same timeline as we do our educators. So if we were to, since we overestimate some of the amounts that we need, that if we are able to have money remaining, we would like board approval for the position so that we can get them posted or make the changes, but it would only be subject to having sufficient funding. And so the first one is the recruitment and retention specialist. That would be in addition to the HR department, and you'll also hear more about this in the task force, but really having a dedicated person to spend time recruiting not only professional educators, but also our paraprofessionals, particularly in special education, as well as our substitutes. There's a handful of other Dane County districts that have added this position, and they have seen a decrease in the unfilled positions that they have, as well as an increase in their substitute pool and their fill rates. And not only in terms of recruiting people to come to our district, but also from my standpoint of paraprofessional retention, because one of the top 3 reasons that paraprofessionals leave us is they say that they would have liked more training or better onboarding. And so would be looking for this person to dedicate that. We are hiring support staff now throughout the year. And so I think we do a wonderful job of onboarding people in August. That gets a little bit harder, especially with having positions not filled in the buildings that we need to do a better job of supporting our paraprofessionals. And I think having a dedicated person will assist with that so that once they're hired, we keep them. And then also there was a lot of discussion at our task force about staff mental health and staff having the time and opportunity and strategies available to take care of their own mental health while they're supporting students. And so I see this position as having staff wellness as a very big component of their position. It's something that other districts have added on a part-time basis and have seen better data from their staff in terms of how they're feeling, which also might be part of the contribution of higher fill rates, that you have less absences. So, but again, only if money is available, and that isn't a position that we need to hire this spring if the money is not there. And then this is a small one, but it's one that has probably come up the last 8 years that I have been here, is that looking at our administrative assistants who focus on attendance. Right now, K4 and Forest Edge, they leave at 2 o'clock. And so, and I would say when older thinking was that, well, they're mainly doing attendance. And so once attendance is done, that they could leave at 2. And I think that worked well. But now the past few years, that has been a strain on the buildings to have them leave at 2 o'clock, because as you can imagine from an elementary lens, 2 to 3 o'clock is a very busy time in our building. And we have had like vacancies in our health paraprofessional offices, so they help cover students needing medication before they get on the bus is something they can help with. They can also help with bus duty, which might be another factor to look at, is can we have maybe fewer educators doing bus duty so that they have time to do something else. So it's within that sustainability piece for our educators, but then also helping the demands on the main office, which more and more they are already looking at 2 o'clock, like how does the next day look for attendance, which positions need to be filled. and having only our main or our head administrative assistant during that 1 hour just puts a strain on the building. So it's not a lot of money, but in terms of priority, when you're balancing that versus a special education teacher, it doesn't rise to the top. But if it's something that we're able to fund, the principals tell us that would be a significant help. But that is something, we wouldn't need to do right now in April. We could increase those hours even in July or August if we knew we had the funding to do so. So with that, I'll turn it back to President Flanagan.
Okay, we've had this, again, like Dr. Bergstrom said, this is our second look at this. There are some changes. So what I'd like to do is go around the room and people can ask all their questions before we put a motion on the floor. So these are clarifying questions. So why don't we start with this side first, since we usually start over here. Anna, I'll go with you first.
Sure. Appreciate the explanation on the updated information before us tonight. First question I have is, you didn't speak to Table C, the other positions, and I guess I'm wondering why those were not selected as potential one-time funded positions when we've got the band and the math, but we don't have the instructional coach or the vocal music teacher. So can you help me understand why those two are not being recommended at this time?
So really for two reasons. One, because the band and the math teacher are positions we can look at as, will the trend continue? And then do we have other solutions? And we also have staff available that are interested in a one-year position. So from a practical standpoint, I'm not as concerned about filling it because we already have people to meet that need. And if we were to make a change after a year, since we have staff that are interested in that, it wouldn't be as impactful to them personally, if that makes sense. And so those are two places where we think we can study and see if there's a different solution. Whereas the instructional coach and the vocal music teacher, that isn't, looking at those positions is not something we would want to make just for a year and then change it. Those are long-term needs that we know that we have. And so we don't have the recurring funds right now to do that. And if we did do that, the retention specialist, since that came from the task force, and then the administrative assistant time, since that's been about an 8-year request, those just rose to the top. But in terms of Table C, put them on here because it's something we have identified as a need. And so we frequently, just like administrative assistants, the board sees requests multiple years in a row. So knowing that it's coming, it's just not the recommendation we have right now because we don't have the recurring funds. But should that change, you will likely see that on future requests for staffing.
And I appreciate that because I did have concerns about the fact that we did have two teacher positions, the band and math, listed in the one-time funding from the perspective of, if we don't find a recurring source, what then?
Right.
What happens then? And would somebody not be able to continue in the position that they have? So I appreciate that, knowing that you've identified some potential people who have an interest in a somewhat interim position, that there wouldn't be, I guess, a surprise if it didn't continue. But I guess the other point to that would be, whether or not we're setting ourselves up for failure if we aren't able to fund it and we still continue to need it. So concern there, but I appreciate the explanation on that. My other clarifying question, actually that was about that was the primary, that was my primary question at this time.
Great, thanks, Anna. Okay, Caleb?
I actually had the same question, so I won't ask that question now. I do have another question, or another couple questions, and they're probably quick questions. For the multilingual paraprofessional, given the requirements of the position, would it be possible? I guess that I'm concerned about the 33,000 number. And is that going to be, could we consider raising it if we needed to? Is that an attractive enough number for someone with that skill set? Because I'm thinking about a multilingual individual and the demand for that kind of skill set, and if we could get someone who has that skill set in that position at 33,000.
We hope so. We do have a salary schedule for our paraprofessionals, and that it would be the top of our salary schedule. And so that's an estimate. Now I'm hoping to do an increase to that schedule for the next school year. And so, yes, that as long as we stay within that $3 million that we have, then yes, that'll be a part of what is our recommendation for increasing that schedule and what does that look like. So that would be included in, so right now we're working on if we look at table A in terms of the budget, that we're asking other staff increases, that's $700,000. That has a wage increase built into that. So I'm hoping to be able to raise that 33,000, but I won't know what that number is until the board approves a new schedule. But part of my job is to look at other districts to see what are multilingual paraprofessionals paid in other districts, and I'm comfortable with that number in terms of being competitive within that market. And again, that might be a teaching position in the long-term future, but right now what we're looking at for next year is to have someone to go in classrooms and give that educational support. So I do feel comfortable with that number.
I also, when you're asking really great questions about why some of the positions are one-time, if you take a look back at the projected student totals, you'll notice that the high school right now has hit an all-time high of 1,312 students projected for next year. However, the 7th grade and 8th grade classes are significantly smaller than the high school classes. So we have a lot of concern about adding additional positions to some of our departments with the worry that the drop in student population could potentially mean that we wouldn't need that position in 2 years. And so we're just really keeping an eye on the number of students who move into the area, the number of open enrollment seats that are filled, because we want to make sure that we don't hire more people than we will need over the long course.
Okay, I just had one other question, and it's about the administrative assistants, the K-6 positions, increasing their leave time to 3 p.m. Would the option be, if we don't figure out a recurring funding source and we say the money disappears, would the option then be for them to revert to the 2 p.m. out time, or would we try to figure out a way to make the 3 p.m. out time a permanent solution going forward? Or is it, if the money disappears, does the out time go back to 2 p.m.?
So we would only extend their day to 3 p.m. if we were confident we had the recurring funds to do that. I mean, yes, we could always change the schedule moving forward, but I wouldn't want to change it unless we were very confident that we could continue that moving forward.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
All right, we'll go to this side, and then Leslie will come back to you. We're asking clarifying questions about staffing. Yeah, no problem. You were at your son's orchestra concert. All right, let's go to Troy.
All right, so I'm really good with most of this. Table A, I'm good with. We've talked about that at the last meeting. Table B, the first portion, one-time funding, is logical to me. I guess I'm pausing on the section of only if recurring funds are available, and mainly the recruitment and retention specialist. And I guess I'm maybe still getting up to speed on the professional sustainability task force, and I understand that's a recommendation in the report, but I'm just not clear that that's the best use of our money to address the items that arose through that task force, being that I think it's down at recommendation number 5. So I'm just pausing on approving this as is without having the board have a deeper look at the recommendations. And maybe it's just semantics on how this all happens. I don't know if you guys would come back to us with that proposal separately, but to me, I'm just uncomfortable approving this recommendation as is with that in there without us having a deeper dive into the report and other options to address issues going forward.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, Heather.
Anna asked my first question. So my second question is, again, we've seen this before, which is really helpful to have time to process and go through all that and dive deep into it. On table C, was there anything that didn't either move up or move away? Is there anything we're missing from this sheet, or is everything accounted for from the last version, whether it's an A, B, or C?
So from my lens, everything is accounted for in terms of how our process is we meet at a team and people put what positions they're requesting and why, and the data supporting it, and the student-centered decision-making process. And then we evaluate that as a team and look at what new positions do we need the board to approve. And so this is our best thinking for next year. It doesn't mean that there won't be different positions next year, but yes, there wasn't anything else on the list that didn't make one of these tables.
So version 1 that we saw last board meeting, everything from version 1 is somehow accounted for, whether it's...
Yes,
Okay,
that
that's all I
is
wanted.
correct. Yes, we just moved things around based on the board's feedback from the last meeting.
Mary, your turn.
Thank you. So my questions are going to belie my my underlying vacillation between spending money and saving money, because we know we're going to have shortfalls in the coming years. And so please just humor me. So on table B, the first table B, yes, the educator compensation salary, is that CPI only increasing factored into there, or does that also include any market increases?
So that is more than CPI, because remember, we have to pay for that step movement, and then we have to pay for people who are obtaining their master's degree or their national board certification. And so that is my best estimate, looking at the salary schedules that I've seen so far, and looking at the goals we set at the bargaining table last time with the OEA, is what pot of money we would need to not only increase those cells, but also pay for teachers to move levels as well as master's degrees. So it's both.
But not necessarily market increases above CPI, just it's CPI and steps.
Correct. But in terms of how I think about it, is our salary schedule reflects the market.
Okay.
So it would be, where do we put the money on the steps to reflect those market increases? So for example, if our starting salary right now is $50,000, so I'm monitoring the market as to where is everyone else's starting salary, and then our top, right? That where is everybody else going with comparable years and their top. So I would say from my lens, the 1.7 does have market increases built into them, because the schedule should reflect the best market that we can compete with. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. Thank you. And then I had just a logistical question. So we have the potential for up to 4 special education teachers. We've also talked about special education paras. The teachers, I mean, those are obviously different categories. My understanding, we have special ed para positions unfilled currently.
Yes.
Are teachers easier to recruit and retain? Do we anticipate we would be able to recruit them?
Yeah, so, well, I would say from a case management standpoint in an IEP, there are certain duties that only a teacher can do, right? And so that is why we look, and right now is the ideal time to hire teaching staff, which is why we keep moving the staffing plan earlier and earlier, so we can get positions approved and posted and filled before other districts fill them. And so from that standpoint, we're asking for the teachers first. Now, if we are, like I say, 1 to 2 for the early childhood, if we're on the bubble and we don't feel we may need another case manager, we will look to see, can we add paraprofessional support to have less strain on the special education teacher, but be confident that the special education teacher can meet the goals in the IEP that the teacher needs to meet. So, and in terms of our special ed paraprofessionals, that is something to address Mr. Pankrat's point, is that from my lens, we need to find a different way to recruit paraprofessionals in special education. That posting on We Can, Indeed, Handshake, that we haven't been able to fill positions, that we need someone with the time and capacity year round to be out, maybe, someone with a little maybe more tech savvy, to be on different social media platforms, to be making connections in the community, to be meeting people in person, to be having job fairs, to be going out to job fairs, looking at, do that data analysis, where do we hire people from, and then what do they need to be retained? And they tell us, like, we want more training, we want better onboarding, and that is something we are hiring year round to do. So really just having someone that has that capacity and dedicated time to fill those positions, because to your point, it has been very hard on our teachers to not have those positions filled. Then they need to make sure that those goals are being met and the objectives are being met. And so I would say once we have the special education paraprofessionals here, I think we do a good job overall of retaining them, but we could do better. And so when I look at, sometimes I would say the number one reason they leave is still financial, because we have neighboring districts that are paying more. And so we're constantly monitoring that. But then the second reason is they feel that if they leave us, that they get into the position and it isn't quite what they expected. And so that tells me we can control that. We can do a better job of talking about what the position is, and the training that they need to feel confident in it. And then the other reason, which is a wonderful reason but hard, is that they're here because they think they might want to be a teacher, and then they go to school. And that's a good reason. And then I hope that they come back when they're done with their program.
Sure. Okay. All right. That helps. Thank you. But I actually share Troy's concern that the recruitment and retention specialist, and this is not a clarifying question, but that has clearly been marked as a priority. We talked about it last time, that it's a priority, and so for that to be only if recurring funds are available, I understand why. I do understand the rationale, but I feel like that should be a priority. The other question I had, so on the band teacher, I know you mentioned Allison Yeager, and my understanding of band is they don't cap that at a number of students, or do they?
I don't believe we have a cap on band.
So how?
Right, we don't say no. If you want to take band, you're able to take band.
So, I mean, does she have enough to even handle that many as the primary teacher? I'm not even talking small group. I'm talking large group.
Dr. Berkson has.
Well, I would say that I think we would love to have a much larger band or music department overall. But I think what the request is from Ms. Yeager is assistance in small group, because band at this point in time doesn't do small group.
Right.
And considering she has increased her numbers almost double, actually, I think it might be more than double, she thinks that she will be better able to meet the needs of the students if they not only have that very, very large group, but they also have some small group opportunities. So I don't know, I'm sure if we said, would you like someone else to help? I'm sure she would love someone else to help. But for now, I think we would feel really, really good about being able to make that next step with just one position.
Okay, thank you. My other question is around the building subs. I know we talked a lot about that last time. I'm fully supportive of that, but my question is, I know you mentioned the fill rates still are 80%. Where are the projections that would get us for the next year?
So I am, for the building subs?
Yes.
I would say, I don't know that having one person is going to move the needle significantly on our fill rates, but what it will do is have a person that when we get a last minute, I'm not feeling well, and I understand it, we don't want people to come to work if they're not feeling well, is that it'll provide that relief that we know there's a person there that can fill that position, that knows our students and knows our building culture. And so I hope with the building sub we may get up to 85%. Where I'd like to be is 95% or higher, and that's going to take adding people to the pool and really working on, we've done everything within our control to decrease absences. From my lens, our top reason for absences is still either being out on FMLA, or, personal or family illness. And so, but I think what we're hearing from our staff and from our principals is having that dedicated person there that then, okay, let's, like Ms. Majeski can say, all right, so these 2 hours you're teaching here, and these 2 hours you're teaching here, and these 2 hours you're teaching here, that can be a seamless transition because they know the building and they know the students, right? Whereas that's just a harder lift for a sub to pick up a job here and there and then here if it's in one day. And often they are partial days. It's just that people have appointments. Their own children have an IEP meeting, things like that. So as opposed to Miss Majeski saying, I'm in kindergarten this morning and then I'm going to second grade and then I'm ending my day with the sixth graders, that they have that one person that they feel comfortable can handle all of those classrooms. I think that's where we'll really see the difference in the relief, and then not having our other kindergarten, teachers in second grade and sixth grade having to fill those couple hours during the day because no one picked them up.
Okay, all right. All right, I think I'll. Sorry, my last clarifying question is on the administrative assistants K through 6. Does that cover the increase at all of the K through 6 buildings?
Yes, that is the total increase if we extended the hours for everyone who isn't already leaving or who would be going from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. I'll stop.
All right, Leslie, you're up.
So I think Mary covered some of what I was going to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway and see if I can get just a little bit more clarification. So for table A, I am all on board. I'm happy with that. But for table B, in the band section, I was kind of going back and forth with the band and the math between the table and then the master schedule. And I was trying to see it on the band piece. And what your explanation with the small groups makes sense. But for the math section, how many sections at the high school level can a teacher take without losing their planning periods?
So our teachers have 5 assignments, and for many of our staff, it's 4 classes and then a supervision. So that would usually be study hall, for lack of a better word. So you have 5 assignments, you have 2 preps and a lunch.
So if you have 11 sections in a year, then that is going beyond that.
So you have 11 sections. Well, if I think about, so I'll back up. So I misspoke on that. So you can have up to, so you have 2, I look at it as 9 period. Other people look at it as 8 period day, but you always have 2 preps and a lunch. So that's three holes in your schedule that we can't fill, right? So then you would have 6 assignments if you do 5 classes and a supervision.
So that is like packing them completely to the end of where they can get.
Right. So we really try not to do that. However, as you can imagine, it's very hard if we need, to find, if you have 2 additional sections to say, oh, we need a 0.2 math teacher or a 0.3 social studies teachers, those are very, very hard to fill positions. So sometimes we do ask teachers to take an overload with their permission, and then we pay additional monies because they will be teaching an additional section. But we try very hard not to do that. And we always ask the teachers first before we talk about that, but it is the balance. And so we also try to, if kids want to take an elective, we try very hard not to say that you aren't able to take that elective, but sometimes we need to do that. So, we might have students that want to take an automotive, but we just can't put more kids in that section. But that's something like with math, you wouldn't say, oh, you can't take algebra, but we have room in algebra too. So we lose that flexibility with math. And right now our math teachers are full. So even if we wanted to do an overload, we couldn't. But to Dr. Bergstrom's point, those numbers might change as our classes get smaller, or if we have a different number of students, that it might balance out a little bit more, where we have, more even numbers of students in geometry or in algebra. So it really is looking at the needs every year to see what are the specific math needs that our students have and what do those class sizes look like. So I appreciate the flexibility that our high school teachers, particularly in middle school, give us in terms of being willing to teach different things so that those class sizes stay manageable. Oh, please.
I just want to add something to what Ms. Jonan said, and that is when the people who are putting the schedules together, when they're considering all of this, they are also trying to take into consideration how many different classes we're asking people to prepare for. Like sometimes if you give the 6th assignment, but it's their 4th different class to prep for, right? Like you have to balance all of those pieces, because as we're thinking about this, we have to do the very best, have the very best experience for kids, but also create a sustainable environment for the teachers. And multiple preparations and overloads, that's not long-term sustainable.
Leslie, can you turn on your microphone?
Sorry, I turned it off so you had yours. And I think, let's see, she answered my other one. That might be the only ones I had that weren't answered already. Yeah, I think it is. Okay, that should be good. Thanks.
All right, given other people's questions, everybody else have, okay, one more clarifying?
Yeah, I have one more quick question, and I apologize. Maybe we've said this, or maybe it's just not sticking. Mary, you inspired me. In the budget table B, I understand like going through the salary increases and the health insurance, like those are year over year costs, right? They may not be the exact same year over year. But for example, adding special education busing, is that the shuttle or is that the route, the driver, the contractor?
Shuttle.
So
It's actually
it's
a shuttle, but it's a route.
it's a physical shuttle. So I guess my question is, as I'm like becoming a semi-expert in school finance, is there not one-time money that we would use to do that one-time expenditure? So this is not coming, like, so we're not losing $58,000 out of our $3.5 million so that we have more money to put into the whatever, table A and B. And then my other one is food service, same thing. Although I know you would say that, well, next year we're also going to need that. But those are the two things that just stuck out to me. And I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about why those are kind of they're certainly an expenditure, but why they're not coming from a one-time money place.
I think you kind of answered the question. We would anticipate that those expenses would continue year after year based on our enrollment perspective from special education. We actually have kind of quasi-added that route already this year because of some behavior issues with our special education situation. So all this is doing is really accounting for that. Yeah.
So it is not, when you say it's a shuttle, I think about you are purchasing a.
No. This is a route. This
It's
is a contractor
This is
driving around
there it is.
on a
Okay,
daily basis.
that's a shuttle. But it's a shuttle. Right, I understand what you're saying. It's not a bus.
It's not,
Okay,
yeah, it's
so-
done in a vehicle, but not the vehicle.
Right. I said, I preface that with Monday. Okay.
All right, any other clarifying questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, move that the board approve the positions in section 3, table A, and approve the positions in table B under one-time funding. So just for everyone's information, that's a slight change to the recommendation.
So what you are saying is that you would not include the recruitment and retention specialists and the administrative assistants at this point in time.
Correct.
Is there a second to that motion? All right, there's not a second to that motion. That motion fails. I will entertain another motion.
Can I ask a point of order?
You sure can.
Is there, I think what I'm hearing, I heard what you said, and are we not able to just move this down the agenda so that we could have some of the professional sustainability task force conversation?
Well, the agenda's already been approved.
Got it, so no.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that the board approve the positions outlined in Table A and Table B, including the ones that are listed for only if recurring funds are available.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? I would second. All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the question that Troy raised about hesitation on the recruitment and retention specialist. And being the board rep on the Professional Sustainability Task Force, I feel I can speak to that to some degree. I would say that this specific recommendation did not come directly from the task force. The task force wasn't saying, guys, we just need to hire a recruitment and retention specialist. With that said, we heard a lot about covering for people's classes and not having the support that they want or need in their classroom, or having too high of caseloads for special education situations. And I think what I've heard from the administration is that this is a tool that can help us recruit those people to have those supports and substitutes, have somebody dedicated at trying to reach people to come into our schools, be in these roles, onboard these individuals, focus on some things related to wellness and mindfulness, which that again was not necessarily a high priority from the task force, but I think it's still, there's a lot of potential with having somebody who can focus on those efforts in support of that goal. And so my initial reaction was, this really wasn't a direct recommendation that came out of the task force, but it was in so many words and in so many ways that this role could serve. So from that lens, I do support this position because of the opportunity it presents to resolve and deal with several of the key issues we heard during that task force conversation.
Any further discussion? Go ahead, Troy.
I'll go. And I totally understand that, and I appreciate the background, Anna. And I can't say that I'm opposed to it. I guess I'm not fully up to speed with the solutions that might be out there. And when I look at the $70,000 for this person who is, not in the classroom versus the $300,000 that we're paying for building subs, I can't help but wonder, would we be better off bringing on an additional sub, or sub and a half, 1.5 subs, in order to put people in the classroom where the relief, in my opinion, what I'm understanding is where the relief is really needed. So that's where I'm at. Like I said, I don't know that I oppose it. I need a little more information, so I won't support this vote.
Any further discussion? Go ahead, Mary.
So, Jean, I know you have mentioned that other districts have employed them and to good effect, but could you just talk us through that as much detail as you have?
And yes, I'm happy to do that. So, and I don't want this position to hold up the staffing report, so please don't misunderstand that. So in looking at, there are 3 other districts that have implemented this position, and they have fill rates in the 90%. And when we talk as HR directors, they directly attribute that to having a dedicated person with boots on the ground to fill their pools. And so from my lens, having a person that is able to do that, and we have tried internally to do increased training and onboarding of paraprofessionals, but with being short-staffed, it's really difficult, right? When you have a new paraprofessional starting at a building and the principal is subbing in the classrooms all day, as well as the intern, as well as student services staff, that it's really hard to say, hi, I'm here, who can train me, right? That we've really put that on the buildings. And part of it is because different buildings are, the kids have different needs when you're a paraprofessional. And so really when we share fill rates, so I have said, district, what have you done to get those fill rates? Because I also look at your absent data, and your absenteeism is just as high as ours is. And so when they tell me that is the solution, then that is going to be very intriguing to me. And this is actually a position that the board approved in the Forest Edge referendum. And so this was my goal even back then in building Forest Edge and looking at trying to staff that building. But then what happened is that the funding, and that was a shared position between our department and the finance department, is that our needs for our students was great. And so we took that funding and increased school psychologist time. And so really put that position off. And so it isn't as though this is a new idea in terms of, we were talking about that back in the Forest Edge referendum. And so from that lens that, could we hire 2 substitutes at $70,000? Absolutely. And would that help 2 buildings? Absolutely. But it wouldn't take us from 80% fill rate to 95%, 100%, which is where I'd like to be, where the other districts are. Now, to be fair, they have other advantages that our community does not in terms of being on a bus line, right? And that has helped them in terms of having staff at that hourly wage and recruiting. So do I think this is the ultimate panacea? No, perhaps not, because it doesn't get us over the transportation barrier, but it also tells me like we have to spend that much more time and that much more energy in saying, here's why you should come to us. And not, not Verona, not Stoughton, not Middleton, not, this is why we need you in Oregon and here's what we have to offer. So, and then I would just want to, in terms of, we'll go through the task for a minute, but it was a strategy that was voted on that made the final list in terms of having that person to address the sub-crisis.
Go ahead, Mary, and then I want to weigh in on this.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I'm tracking. So we've talked about fill rates for substitutes in the classroom of being 80%, but then you just said that the retention and recruitment, the districts who have implemented that specialist have fill rates of 90%, but that fill rate is for jobs, correct? For employment?
I'm sorry. So if I look at right now, our teacher fill rate is 80%. The districts that have this position are all in the 90% in terms of their sub-fill rate. Our paraprofessional retention is 60%, and those districts are at least 80%, if not higher. So if I think about looking at our vacancies so those are the substitute fill rates. In terms of our retention rates, that what we look at is we have 4 vacant positions right now. The district that have this position as of winter break had no vacancies in their special ed paraprofessionals. And so I always ask them, what are you doing? And all 3 of them independently said it was having a person in this position. So, and that is a position too where I wouldn't ask for one-time money because I don't see a person moving a needle for 1 year and then us laying that person off.
From my point of view, the ROI in this position is exponential. I think it is one of the best uses of our funds because as you look at the staffing report and look at how many positions we've added, we can't also keep putting this load on the people that are doing all the recruitment and retention, which is Gina and her team. And and also the principals who are also dealing with additional behavior, and they're also subbing, and our superintendent is going in for a principal for a day and subbing. We can't continue to compact our team without somebody that's actually going out and selling this district to subs and paras. It is a total win-win for us, and I 100% support this position, and I would like to see it taken off, only if recurring. But I'm willing to, advance your recommendation because that's how you see this, but I am 100% in support of this position. So that's where I stand. Any other discussion?
I guess the only other thing I'd like to say is I'm in the same place as you are, Krista. I'd like to see that moved up. And it's your recommendation, but, I think it feels to me that adding 4 special ed teachers just feels too heavy. And I'd love to see, maybe 1 swapped out for the recruitment and retention, but that's not a requirement, just a suggestion.
Any further discussion?
I just want to put in my support that I think that the recruitment and retention specialist would be very valid and would show its sustainability across our district by reaping the rewards we need from that person.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Katie, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Bijak?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Garrison?
Yes.
Dr. Lakuta?
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz?
No.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes, motion carries 6-1. Okay, moving on to D, action item 2. Because it is spring break, we are recommending that we do not have a school board meeting because we will probably not have quorum. By state statute, we do not have to have a motion to cancel this meeting, but it is our tradition to do that. And so I would entertain a motion to cancel that meeting. I'll make that motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Katie, could you please call the roll?
Dr. Lakuta? Yes. Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Ms. Bijak?
Yes.
Dr. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Garrison?
Yes.
Mr. Pankratz?
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Thanks, everyone. Moving on to E, discussion items. First one is committee reports, committee of the whole. As people saw on the agenda, we had a further discussion on food service as well as building and grounds. And so those discussions have led into our discussion and vote tonight on staffing plan, and then we'll also lead into our budget discussions as Andy leads us through those later this summer and fall. So those will continue, and then we will also have a policy meeting coming up too, because we do have some policy changes that need to happen. So that will be on the next agenda, please, Katie, for April, if we have any policy action items from that. Okay, moving on to discussion item 2, which is previously referenced in this meeting, our professional sustainability task force report. The board did commission that task force to study sustainability associated with the education profession in the Oregon School District. So I will turn that over to Dr. Bergstrom to introduce our 2 co-chairs.
Thank you. Before I begin with our 2 amazing co-chairs, I'd just like to spend a moment thanking the people who served on the committee, because we had many of our staff members, in addition to community members, who volunteered to spend 6 meetings here in this very room. Hello, Rael, you were one of our staff members. Thank you for being here. We spent a lot of time together talking about things that we were all very passionate about, which was how to create a more sustainable future for our profession, or for the profession, because for many people in the room, it wasn't their profession. They just really, really care about education and want to see good things happening. So I really just have to put out into the universe a lot of gratitude for the people who spent their time here with us. They gave us really good insight into things that worked in their profession and things that were important to them as far as education. And they also did a great job analyzing research, asking good questions, understanding where we are now before we start talking about where we want to be. So I can't say enough about all of the people who were a part of the committee, including our fabulous co-chairs, Anna Bijak and Gina Jonan, and I will turn it over to them to talk in more detail.
So that was a great thank you to the awesome team that we had. The first comment that I wanted to make was the same thing. A thank you to the committee and the community members, the educators that came to the table and were part of this conversation. What a great group of people who care about each other, care about this community, and most importantly, care about our kids. And so just a really great group. It was wonderful to hear respectful perspectives and ideas, thoughtful questions, and really focusing on what's best for education and kids in our classroom and the teachers who are teaching those kids. So it was a really, really great collaboration. A couple other things that I'm really proud of is that I learned so much about what we are already doing as a district that is part of the best practices, if you will, or some of the, reinforce that we're doing so much to retain and attract educators, right? We hear about the fact that it's a destination district. One of the goals was to continue to be a destination district. And I just want to kind of talk through a few of we read so many articles about what does it take to be to focus on retainage and attraction, attracting people and retaining them. And I'm just going to read some of these. This is one particular article that talked about key factors that emerged from teacher working conditions survey data analysis. And these are just the things that were listed. teacher and school leadership, professional learning and collaboration, community support and parent engagement, teachers' collective practice and efficacy, instructional resources, time for teaching, student conduct, a conducive physical environment, and student assessment data. And when I read this list, I think we hit the mark on so many of these areas, and it was really great to see and hear about those things and to sort of say, wow, we're doing a lot of things right. And there's a lot more things we can do differently, which is, of course, part of what we're learning about. But that was something that I found really interesting. Reminders that we are doing great things in this district already. Also, I think another kind of learning opportunity for me is that this district makes a significant investment in teacher supports. So a lot of what we talked about is what things are we already doing to support teachers in the work that they're doing in their classroom, and obviously all of this is in service of our kids and learning. But there were these lists of things, and I've got another one I'm going to read, but the point is I wanted to create a visual of the multi-level systems of support for our teachers, kind of like what we have for our multi-level systems of support for kids related to their academics and their behaviors, because it was like, yeah, this is amazing. We are doing such awesome work in our district. So these are just some of the highlights. We have a new educator pathway focused on our values. Another article right here, the 8 teacher retention design elements. Number 1, energized by purpose. So, we are focusing on the values of this district. That is recruiting people to this school. And we're focusing on that with our new educator pathway, as well as professional development opportunities, right? I mean, it's like right in line with all of these things we're learning about that teachers want in their careers. A full-time mentor for initial educators for the first 3 years of being with our district. Educator effectiveness coaches, instructional and social emotional learning coaches. We have one in every building. Regular education paraprofessionals. We are one of the only districts to continue to have regular ed paraprofessionals. Many districts have gone away from having those positions. We are still supporting that initiative in our district. We have a very low student to special ed para ratio. Now there's a caveat to that, but we're one of the lowest ratios compared with other districts. The caveat is many of those positions are vacant, so the challenge here is retaining those special ed paraprofessionals once they come join us. So that's an important part of what we're wanting to focus on. Another one, increased teacher work time on professional development days. So we're hearing about the need for more time to do the job they want to do, implementing those things where we can, and then adopting some child leave practices. Again, this list is really comprehensive and really impressive when we talk about what we are already doing. I think the fourth thing I want to touch on is that we talked about what things are inside our purview and outside of our purview. And one of the things that's outside the purview was compensation, right? Because we've just went through a referendum. We are so thankful to our community and the support they've already, approved, and that has been part of our compensation piece for that. The other one that I think that we talked about that is outside the purview, but in my opinion, it's an important topic, and that was student behaviors. So we talked about how that is a critical component of a piece of the puzzle, but it wasn't necessarily within the purview of the charge of this task force. But with that, I would say that I think it's important for us as a board to further our knowledge base in the area of student behaviors, how they're handled and managed within schools. I think that's going to be an important next piece for us as a board to learn more about and start to understand further, because that was a piece that came out, but it wasn't necessarily part of the charge. Within our purview, we were talking a lot about the themes that we heard from the STAY interviews. And I would say that a resounding theme was time. And I'm sure none of us are surprised by that theme. But the issue was having enough time to do all of the great work that they want to do, to be the best teacher they can be, to provide the best educational learning environment for our kids. And so, you know, and I mentioned some of the best practices we're talking about are professional development and collaboration. So we hear a lot about PLC work, but how do we create time for the PLC work and not take away from the time that teachers want to be able to do their lesson planning, their prep, their work that they need to do to be the best teacher? And so I think what you're going to see and what's highlighted in the report, Gina, you did an amazing job on the report. She captured the work of this task force really eloquently, very concisely, and I'm very proud of the work that she put together. But that's really what came to the crux of a lot of our discussion, was how do we create more time? And there's different ways and ideas that were talked about with that. And then, of course, there are several other priorities of things that we can speak to. But those were some high-level things that I wanted to share with the group from you know, the perspective that I took on this. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gina.
Thank you. Well, I have to just thank Ms. Bijak and Dr. Bergstrom so much, because when we started this project, I was a little outside my comfort zone, because like, I'll do salary schedule, I'll do health insurance, you know, give me a good post-retirement benefit challenge and get excited about that. But you know, just thinking about where are we going to go with professional sustainability and what is within our control to do. And so just really loved working with you on this project and everyone on the task force. I mean, just the people in the room and the wealth of expertise and knowledge and passion for supporting educators as the most impactful person in a student's classroom. It was just amazing and wonderful to hear, and just really exciting for me to meet HR professionals and mental health professionals and people from our business community. Getting together to look at our data and share strategies from their own industries, and you know, just being able to talk about what we're seeing in Dane County and where people are going in different workplaces was just a wonderful opportunity. So I just want to thank the board for this, and Dr. Burks and I were talking, and we don't know of another district in Wisconsin that has done this, and so just always grateful to be part of a district that's ahead of the curve. And that is one thing that I do want to emphasize in terms of our educator retention, that we are a destination district, that we have, if you look at our data, 95% retention overall, and then 99% retention if you factor out circumstances beyond our control, such as a significant other relocation. So what I love about our district and your leadership is that we try to be proactive. And look at things into the future and be innovative. And so this was really work to say, we want, you know, we know we have wonderful retention rates, and how do we keep that? How do we keep supporting our educators and getting better? So that was really exciting. So in terms of what we did is we spent time looking at national trends for education, why educators stay, and then what they say they need if they do leave the profession or a particular district, and then match that with our local data. And so spent a lot of time talking about Dr. Bergstrom work and doing the state interviews with 40 of our staff, which is 10% of our professional staff, and looking to see that does our local data match our national trends. And not surprisingly, it did. And so as Ms. Bijak talked about, that people stay here specifically because they have a passion for education and they feel they're making a difference, and that they have very strong relationships with colleagues and with their principal or their immediate supervisor, and that thankful to the referendum, because competitive compensation and benefits is a key factor of why they stay, and then the professional development opportunities. And so I would say that was really a consistent theme that came out. I think not surprisingly for anyone who has a boss, is who your boss is a significant factor of if you stay somewhere and if you enjoy working there. So I really do want to say thank you to our principals and admin interns and assistant principals, because it was a consistent theme throughout our discussion, is that they are so appreciative of having supportive leaders in their buildings. And so looking at our data, we also do our school perception survey, and you'll see those results there. And I know that Ms. Mundinger has gone over those with the board as well. But really why we focused in on time and workload is you'll see in terms of my workload is reasonable or manageable on page 5 that only 57% of our educators agreed with that statement. And so you could say, well, that's education in general. But then if you look at our percentile ranking, that being in the 42nd percentile, that isn't where we want to be. And so that was a key point as to focusing on the workload and digging into the state interviews about those themes of why educators are answering it the way that they are. And I would say one theme that we talked a lot about, and I appreciated the educator voice in the room on this, is we have made a consistent and intentional move into having professional learning communities. And Dr. Bergstrom is a better authority on this than I am, but really having a consensus in the room that is a key strategy we are using to increase student achievement and moving towards an inclusion model for our students that need special education programming. And so educators really seeing the impact of that work and wanting to do that, also with understanding the balance that has put an increased workload demand on educators, because right now the way we're doing that is educators are using their prep time and they're going to PLC meetings, which is wonderful. And at the same time a challenge because that is now less work time they have during the day to do all the other requirements of the job, right? Like assessments, responding to families, and that work then goes to non-contract time because there are only so many hours in the day. And one of our challenges of doing that is that teachers have to cover for other teachers during their prep time, so they may not be able to go to PLCs. Or our special education teachers, if there's a student that is having a particular challenge, that a teacher doesn't just say, oh, well, now it's my prep time, I need to go to my PLC, right? Like they meet the needs of the students at that time. So I guess the most ideal model we would have is have time carved out where every educator could attend, in addition to challenges that if a teacher is in RCI and also at middle school, that then they can't potentially be at a PLC because they're in another building. So we talked a lot about how that was a priority and a strategy, but the way that it's being done right now is just increasing workload on our educators. And so talked a lot about that theme. And so then really looking at, and so one of the processes we did, which I think was at least fun for me to observe, is we just did a brainstorm. Okay, just, in true brainstorming mode, every idea you can think of to increase professional sustainability, let's just get it on paper, right? And it doesn't matter how wild it is because you never know what's going to come from a brainstorm. And so we had a huge list of ideas, and so and wonderful ideas. And so one of my commitments to the task force was that every idea that's put on the table that we will look at, either as an HR department or an administrative team, just to see, even if it didn't rise to the top as the highest priority, that maybe it's something someday that we can do. Because I love hearing about what other employers are doing to see if we can do that. So have a very long list of ideas, which is pretty exciting. But then you have to do that narrowing process. So like the funnel method of getting to our charge of what were the highest priority items. And so you will see those recommendations on page 6 and 7. And we spend at least 3 meetings brainstorming and then funneling down. And so I would say it came down to, in terms of the top priority of the 6 recommendations that you will see in front of you, and they were really broader themes. We didn't have enough time to delve into strategies in depth and do that, the SWOT analyses and all that. So what we wanted to do is make recommendations to the board for things we want to study further, things that intrigued us, but we knew we didn't really have time to dive into about how we would do them. And so really the top recommendation, not surprisingly from my lens, is that we find ways to provide educators with a calendar and more flexible leave options to give a greater sense of workload manageability and long-term sustainability. So just that theme of flexibility. And if you look at trends in every other industry, it is something that companies are looking at more and more, is how do you give people more flexible work schedule, more time off, more control over their day. Those are big challenges for us in the industry that we're in, but some of them aren't insurmountable. And so given the resounding theme of that is our number one recommendation, that we study ways within keeping the high achievement and service to our student, that we do look at places as to where can we give more flexibility, or how can we stay true to our PLC structure, but also give teachers that prep time and that work time that they still need to do all the other parts of their jobs. So that was the number one recommendation that we have. And people also understood our limitations with our state law, that not being able to start before September 1 is really a huge challenge for us. Because if we want any type of calendar that has more leave in it for staff, is we're just going later in June, and that's outside of our control right now. So in terms of recommendation number 2, that we look at redesigning our professional development requirements and look at ways to find, to protect that prep time for teachers. And I think number 1 really goes with number 2, that if we can find a different way to do that, that our teachers would appreciate that. They really appreciate the professional development that we have, and also that we should really look at, are we really emphasizing our priorities and those key strategies that we have. So looking for ways to do that. And then recommendation number 3 is to find a way to support educator mental health. You know, as the needs of our students increase, so do the needs of our adults. And we have wonderful educators because they care about their kids, and that caring can take a toll when you go home. And so, you know, we talk about the airplane model, that you have to secure your own mask before taking care of others. And so we just know that if people are physically healthy, if they are feeling good about where their mental health is, that they will just be a better educator for our students. And so one of the things that Ms. Mundinger and I have been talking about for a few years, and finally want some time to put together a campaign, and Ms. Bijak came up with it too, which was just exciting, is, you know, we have the whole child, that we really have to talk about how our district focuses on the whole educator. And we do that. We just have I like that multi-level systems of support, like what we provide in terms of why to come to our district. But just, you know, we get the health insurance data every year, and just, you know, the amount of anxiety and depression that our teachers are facing is increasing, and that's a nationwide trend. And we're actually doing much better than the national statistics show. But really, and so other districts have added a person to focus on adult wellness, and they do feel that that's moving the needle in that direction. So that was our number 3 priority, is just helping teachers with strategies to take care of themselves. Number 4 is, and it talks about that consistent, wonderful school leadership, is finding ways to retain our school leaders. Because, and I think I've been doing this for 20 years, and anytime you have a change in a principal or a superintendent that people really care about, they just get nervous because they wonder who is the next person going to be. And really, they emphasize having that consistent school leadership. And so to give an example of one way that we have looked at that is like our admin intern program. Before the pandemic, I would say we tried to move administrative interns around so they could see different leadership styles. Since the pandemic, what our staff and our students have told us is they like a consistent person in that position. So we have tried not to move people because those relationships are even more critical after the pandemic. So looking at ways to also increase the collaborative and caring school environment that we have, and then find even more strategic ways to recognize people for their work. That is a theme that we are hearing. And recommendation number 5, and we've heard a lot about that tonight already, but the sub shortage is taking a toll on everyone, and that was a topic of conversation at every meeting. It came up one way or another. And so, you know, I think all of you understand the impact on our staff and our students to not have those positions filled, and to the increased workload demands when teachers have to cover for other teachers. And that was one where the retention and recruitment specialist did rise up again as a potential strategy to address that, along with, you know, other strategies that are listed more difficult, like, you know, pay much more, right? Or hire 1.5 times the teaching staff that we have. Like, that's just not obtainable in our budget. So this was a strategy that the task force identified. And then number 6 was which is just always wonderful to hear, that came through is that people stay here because of the support they have from the community and the board and our families. And so just keep finding ways to engage our community and keep that support high, because our teachers really feel it from the community. And so that is a key factor of why they stay. So with that, I'll turn over to Dr. Bergstrom to see what you would like to add.
You were very thorough. I appreciate that very much. I think maybe I'll just remain quiet until there are questions that I can address directly.
Before I turn it over to comments and questions from the board, I think one important thing is next steps. And so some of you, this is kind of the first opportunity you've had to deal with us, the board, having a task force creation, and then what happens afterward. And so as we know, the board stays on the balcony, the administrative leadership team's on the dance floor. And so this is a dance floor card right now, is they're going to look and study this report and come back to us in terms of what are the things that the board would need to act on, or what would go to policy, or what would go to visioning. And so that's kind of the next step. But as we can attest tonight, that we've already addressed some of the things already in this recommendation by the approval of the long-term substitutes, and as well as the recruitment specialist if we have the funds to do that. So we're well on our way. I really appreciate Anna pointing out the things that this district is already doing. I think that's a really important piece, and just in terms of perspective. But we, as we know at the Oregon School District, we can always do more. But I did want to address that question first about next steps, and so people are clear on that. So I will open the floor, and just let me know if you'd like to have comments or questions, and we'll go from there. So go ahead, Leslie.
I just wanted to say thank you to Anna and Gina and all of the wonderful people who came together to put this together, because this is wonderful. This is great, good stuff that we can actually sink our teeth into, and the administration can actually make some good decisions about how we move forward, and may hopefully be able to maintain our wonderful educators that we have and have some new ones.
Questions, comments? Go ahead, Heather.
I'll echo what everybody is saying, to thank everybody for their time. When we saw the list of the people that were going to be on this task force and the roles that they hold in our community, not only in our school district, but outside of our school district, I was blown away with the professional insight in HR and statistics and all sorts of data analysis that really just, I think, moved this along. My question, hopefully it's off the dance floor, let's see. My takeaway as I read this, and then I also heard your helpful comments, is the workload not being manageable is what rises to the top. Not a surprise, but right, when I looked through this, and it's like reasonable expectations, ability to protect their well-being, sustainable work-life balance, fewer demands, some of the survey things, that I just kind of all rolled that into workload is not manageable. And so I totally understand that we all see that, and that the recommendation, number 1 and number 2 probably speak to that in a really big chunk, but that is not a quick turn of the boat, right? So I do, on the flip side, see building subs, hopefully this retention specialist, even adding the things, even adding part of the position so that class sizes aren't, maxed out, I see as a short-term help. But I guess, and maybe this is a next step thing, is I don't know that we have 2 years or 3 years, to right size our or whatever we're going to do with our calendar, TBD. So I would just be curious how we'll continue to kind of live in the short term while planning for the long term. And there doesn't have to be an answer for that tonight, but just things that I'm thinking about after reviewing all of this data.
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Caleb.
So I'll start with a question. I think it's an easy question. I think I understand after it was explained. When I was looking at the survey question data, the second column, the percentile column, and I think I didn't understand it when I first looked at it. So I was like, what's the comparison? Where's the percentile come from? But it sounds like it's a percentile comparison to other schools that conducted the school perception survey where our results rank. Yes. Okay. That was what I was curious about when I looked at the report the first time. I didn't understand. And I take great pride in understanding tables and stuff, and I was looking at it, I'm like, I don't think I understand this, but I think I did after it was explained. So I just wanted to make sure that I was reading that correctly, and I'm happy that I am. And then I had a couple comments, I guess, just to kind of, and I'll try to be brief. One thing I like about the work that was done is that, and in my experience, whenever I hear somebody say, we're forming a task force, I'm like, oh no. Like, that's a very easy way to like sound like you're doing something without doing anything. Let's sit around and talk about it. But I think what's great about this work is that you have clear recommendations that are actionable items that we can think about and work towards fixing or addressing, maybe not fixing, but at least addressing. I don't know if there's a fix. Because one of my other comments was, one of my concerns is that some of these things that I think are rightly being raised by teaching professionals, one of my concerns is that some of these things are kind of becoming baked into the profession itself, which is one of the things I really worry about. I'm, in higher education, I have to admit, like, I think we face some of the same challenges. And I'm concerned that, like, it's kind of something that is not fixable, but I'm also optimistic that we can do things to address what we can address, because some things we can some things we can change, some things we can't. And that's one of the things that I liked about it, is that we have, I think, things that we can think about moving forward, because that concern with time and like the balance of like what you do with your time and how much you can prepare is something that I hear over and over again, and feeling stretched thin is something that you hear over and over again from teaching professionals. And I just am concerned that it's kind of becoming part of the profession and it's getting baked in. So if we can do something to address that, I think it would be great. One other thing, and this is something else that I wanted to just very quickly speak to, going back to the discussion we had earlier about the staffing plan, I'm often right there with what Troy was talking about when he talks about, looking at what we're doing with the limited money that we have and thinking about ways to put more teachers in the classroom. That's often my first thought. There's been so many times in my life when you look at like a position and you think about, well, we're going to put this position in place and this position has this salary and benefits. And I look at that and I'm often like, that's like, we could hire 2 teachers or 3 teachers for that salary, right? And like, wouldn't that be more effective use of our money? So I'm right there on that concern. But when I look at the recommendations, I can't help but be struck by how many places, if we can do right with the recruitment and retention specialist, how much effect that position could potentially have in addressing some of the recommendations. And I really see a reason for optimism that if we can get that position in place, that someone doing that role can really speak to some of the concerns that come out of the recommendations. I mean, I was looking at it and I see at least 3 just off the top of my head that have a direct connection to that position. And the other thing, of course, too, that was in the staffing plan was the substitutes and the building substitutes and how we can try to address the substitutes shortage. And I just wanted to make a comment about those couple observations after I asked my question, and that's really all I had. So thank you.
Go ahead, Gina.
Well, and I want to thank you for pointing that out about school perceptions, because for the public reading this, I want to add a footnote to explain that. So thank you for that, because anything we can do to make it clearer, at least for me, I live with this all day, so those are things I often miss. So thank you for that, and I would like to add something to the report so people reading it can understand that.
Go ahead, Mary.
So obviously the bottom in that survey table, the bottom item is the most concerning. I think we all recognize that, and hopefully the staffing plan will start to right the ship. But I did want to just talk a little bit about the next to last. I am recognized when I do a good job. The fact that percentile is relatively low, and that seems like it should be something that we should be able to turn around fairly quickly.
We agree. We recognize that that's something that we would be able. It could be potentially be a a win that's in the short term, as opposed to having to wait a really long time.
Other comments? I'll just say one. It wasn't so long ago when we approved a referendum that added professional development into our calendar. And the question was, what's a PLC? Do I have to do a PLC? And looking at the progression, with Dr. Bergstrom being Director of Instruction, now with John and Darcy, that we've moved past that is now an expectation that our staff feels collective efficacy, that if they work together, they're going to do so much more for students by learning from each other. And so, it's just a perception and a kind of recognition over time. I've been on the board 8 years, and that we've come a long way in a short amount of time, that this team that you've all built here and the educators really believe that if they have more time together, it's going to show impact for our kids. And that's a really powerful thing, right? As a district, that we believe we've got the right team, and if they spend more time together, it's going to be more effective. So, I don't know, it's just something that just struck me, that it wasn't long ago that we were talking about, can we get more professional development? Do we have to have more people that are willing to do that? And we're there. And so now we're in this elevated space of, now what do we do with it? And can we get more people to do that? So I just think that's really fascinating. I want to thank Anna for taking on this role as a board member. We really appreciate that. Great report. We look forward to more things coming back to the board as we further these discussions. So anything else on the task force? Okay, moving on to F information items. And so that is all Dr. Bergstrom, 1, 2, and 3.
Oh my, and there are some really good things. So I'm gonna buzz through till we get to the pictures, everybody. So we know with our vision and strategic plan, I really hope that you notice with our Skills USA students today, with what we've been talking about related to the Professional Sustainability Task Force, with the staffing plan, with the professional journal forward, and then all of the things that we will highlight tonight, that what you're seeing in this framework is becoming a part of the everyday experience of our students and also our staff. And that feels really good. And we know that we are advancing our priorities. And really, when you see some of the things tonight in the superintendent's report, I think you'll be able to find examples of priorities 1, 2, and 3, and goals 1, 2, and 3, well, and 4. Honestly, you'll see them all tonight in the superintendent's report. Another thing I want you to notice, and I guess it really goes back to number 2, the increased learning readiness, physical and emotional. Tonight, as you look at or hear about some of the slides that I'll share, I want you to note how often the focus is on how we connect and relate to one another and how we connect and relate to our community. And I'll point that out as it comes, but it really struck me when I looked at what we're featuring tonight. And of course, I'm very proud to be able to feature the fact that we just wrapped up February is Black History Month, and we wanted to showcase a sampling of the activities that took place across the school district. Lots of special announcements, library book displays, portrait walls, book readings, and more. I also want to point out the periodic table of I think it's a Black History Month or Black History Figures. It is done by our local resident who also works frequently with us as a substitute teacher, Desiree Mayo. You actually see her reading a book in the upper hand corner also. And it's kind of exciting to note that her artwork is going to be featured on the magazine Umoja this month. And so she is an amazingly talented artist, and she is continually finding ways to be creative, to bring things to light, and to uplift people in the district. And then, speaking of uplifting, it was School Social Worker Week last year, and many of us here sitting around the table can remember when we didn't have any school social workers. And now we have 4, and you just approved another one this evening. And the work they do is incredibly important. They play a pivotal role in enhancing the well-being and success of our students. And so we will soon be up to 5 Thank you very much to the board and their leadership and to our current social work staff. And it was mentioned that we have a social emotional learning coach at each building. Well, I kind of wish. Michelle Kretschmann makes her way around each building, but right now she is our one and only amazing SEL coach. And I really know that the work that she has done and that Janet Pliner did in the past and is still doing for the high school now on a part-time basis, and what Betsy Delzer was and is doing as the SEL coach and now administrative intern, they are very much making a difference in what we help kids learn with intention. And look, learning with intention, I think, is another piece that I want to put out there. And this is the teachers learning from each other with intention. This is staff members of Brooklyn. They recently participated in their very first pineapple chart day. You know, they have to make everything cute out in Brooklyn. And on this day, the Brooklyn teachers signed up to visit one another's classrooms and then for the specific learning purpose. And then when they went on the visit, they wrote something about that experience and put it on this pineapple cutout to be shared with the staff and placed on the bulletin board. So the idea, and it really builds off what Ms. Flanagan was just saying, is that our staff really, it is the culture, it is the expectation that you are sharing with one another and learning from one another. That's a part of what we do now. And a lot of what we addressed in the Professional Sustainability Task Force was how do we ensure that people have time to do it and do it well. High school instructional rounds. Here's another example of what Ms. Flanagan said about being able to see how things have evolved over time. The high school does their instructional rounds process, what they refer to as their continuous quest for better. They do this twice a year. And it's really been a high yield strategy for creating this strong collaborative culture that focuses in on high impact teaching and learning. And I remember participating in their very first one. And it was a wonderful experience. And I know that we spoke at that time about the importance of observing being able to have the cognitive load in the classroom being shifted from the teacher to the students, right? Because, you know, I'm sure many of you remember the days when the education was really about teachers telling you stuff and you had to remember it, right? And the importance of shifting that dynamic so that the student is the one carrying the cognitive load, not the teacher, not just the teacher. And what was so exciting to see this several years, several iterations down the road, that is now a given. And now we're looking at things that are even more complex and nuanced. So being able to watch that evolution has given me just tremendous respect for the professionals who are a part of that process. Thank you to everybody who lets all of these visitors come into their classroom. We had Wanakee School District, McFarland School District, St. Thomas More School in Milwaukee, UW-Madison. They were all involved. And so thank you to the teachers who allow everybody to come in and talk about all the great things that are happening. Now this young man, Matthew Viviani, he's a student at Forest Edge Elementary, and he's being recognized for an act of heroism by the Dane County Sheriff's Office for his actions this past June. Matthew was present when his grandmother stopped breathing, and Matthew immediately called 911 and administered CPR until the EMS arrived. His quick thinking and actions were heroic and are exactly what should have been done in that situation. So Matthew trained himself to do CPR 3 years ago because his sister was born 2 months early. So as part of the protocol for preemies at home, the hospital sent a CPR doll and a training video. I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. And Matthew wanted to make sure that if he was ever by himself with his baby sister, he'd be prepared. So he's being honored at a special awards ceremony in April. We're very proud of you, Matthew. Brooklyn Elementary, the students engaged in a collaborative art project to spread kindness in the community. They gathered with the new restaurant in town, the Hachi Hachi Sushi and Hibachi Grill. That's so much fun to say. And their artwork is displayed in the entryway. And this will be rotated throughout the year with other students' work. We love your artwork and the demonstration of strong family and community partnerships. And their message is pretty great too. And then we had our Netherwood students competing at the state level in their artwork. This is elementary, everybody. They had artwork featured. A little kindergartner named Bo had his artwork featured, Greta in 2nd grade, and Sylvie in 3rd grade. So these pieces with others from all over the state will be on display for the month of March, which is the Youth Art Month at East Town Mall, with a reception on March 22nd. And a special thanks to Mrs. Prahl, the art teacher at Netherwood, who offered this opportunity for her students. And also, because it is National Youth Art Month, Ms. Prahl's art students at Netherwood have their art pieces displayed in local cafes throughout March. So we love your artwork, everybody, and a special thanks to the Firefly Coffee House and the Kickback Cafe for showcasing these beautiful art pieces. Oh, someone who looks familiar. So Forest Edge students did student chair portraits for their student-led conferences, so that when a family member would walk into the room, there was a student portrait at every chair. And I thought that was really, really cool for a couple of reasons, but the most important one is you really got to see how your child sees themselves and what's important to them by how they make this depiction in their classroom. I thought that was just beautiful. And then our students at Brooklyn, they became superheroes. So they made cancer ribbon cards with words of encouragement and messages on them to share with cancer patients in need. And law enforcement and Justice for a Cure mascot came to collect them, talk with the kids, and hand out superhero pencils. And the Prairie View students, they have themes, Prairie View does. And this time the students at Prairie View gathered for an all-school assembly centered around the month's theme of encouragement. So during the assembly, they talked about ways to encourage their peers and got a sneak peek at the Read Across America book relay. And the students and teachers showcased ways for students to encourage friends at school with classroom recognitions, something close to what we were talking about. And after the assembly, students met with their multi-grade Piece of the Piece, or POP group, to put their learnings into practice by creating cards with encouraging messages for 3rd through 8th grade students who will soon be taking the Forward Test, Wisconsin's standardized test. So Prairie View students are excited that they could do something to bring a smile to students' faces in upcoming exams. So keep up the great work. We love your enthusiasm and your kindness. And Forest Edge had day 1 or night 1 of the STEAM Fair. I think tomorrow night is night 2. I'm fortunate to be a judge tomorrow night, and you see Dr. Anderson there serving as a judge at the night that was last week. It was, by all accounts, a fantastic evening. Students showcased everything from Lego masterpieces to homemade clocks to how the color of chicken eggs are determined. Wow. Each student had the opportunity to present their display to an event inspector who asked questions and gave feedback. And as you see, Dr. Anderson, Director of Student Services, was one of these inspectors. So we're so proud of your hard work and love seeing your amazing creations. Keep up that great work, Forest Edge students. And our Math 24 students, they came and they conquered. So the Greater Dane County Advanced Learning Network held their Math 24 competition at UW-Madison at the end of February, and you'd never know it if you looked at what the kids are wearing outside. It was clearly a very warm day. The Oregon teams did really well and came home having a very fun experience, along with bringing home a lot of medals. So thank you to our high school Math 24 alumni who joined us to support the event as proctors. So the high school kiddos came back to work with the young kids at the competition. I think that's pretty cool. And look at this. And I think Ms. Washensky is still in the audience here. OMS students were inducted into the German Honor Society. So congratulations to OMS German students who recently were inducted into the Junior National German Honor Society. This This is a very formal, big deal. It happened at the middle school last week. Inductees are required to have demonstrated highest academic achievement, positive attitude and work ethic, and encouragement of others in their learning journey. Since the first day of 7th grade, these students have displayed curiosity in and grown as learners in the language and culture. So Frau Wyszynski and Mr. Avalos welcomed them into the Junior Delta Epsilon Phi, which is a national education honorary society for the study of middle school German. It's sponsored by the American Association of Teachers of German, and the Junior Delta Epsilon Phi was founded in 1968. Congratulations, kids. OMS, they just had a very fun event today. The students in Mr. Fisher's STEAM class at Oregon Middle School are using the engineering process to build bridges and put them to the test. They designed their plans based on research about bridges and built them with approved materials and specifications. The culmination of the project was to determine how much weight the bridge could hold. Some bridges were able to hold 90 pounds of weight. I know the engineer's impressed. What a fantastic project to incorporate engineering concepts. So thanks to Mr. Fisher for designing this relevant and empowering learning experience. Oh, and this one gets at my heart too, because last week, 45 OHS students boarded a fan bus to the Overture Center. This is in the evening, everybody, to see their peer, Elliot Lesperance, perform in the final Forte concert and competition with the Madison Symphony Orchestra. The concert was outstanding. I hope some of you were able to hear it as it was live streamed, and we're so proud of Elliot for his hard work in this endeavor. The concert was broadcast live on PBS, and he earned an honorable mention award and a $1,000 scholarship. So congratulations, Elliot. We're really proud of you. And special thanks to Ms. Yeager and Ms. Yancey for accompanying all of these students to support Elliot at the event. Isn't that neat? And then our Skills USA students that we saw here this evening. As I said, they had an amazing performance at UW Stout last week. So big thanks to Mr. Hawkinson and Mr. Stace for coaching the team. So the podium place winners, you had Morgan Spindler. She earned a gold in related technical math. Morgan Spindler and Jackson Walsh earned a gold in urban search and rescue robotics. Oh my goodness. And Toshi, our student exchange student from Taipei, Toshi earned a gold in additive manufacturing, which is 3D printing. I would not have known that without the parenthesis behind that, so I'm really glad that was there. And Miles Ertl earned the silver for electronics technology. And then Anish Patel and Brady Bartlett were in the team engineering challenge, and Xander Lisowski was in the technical drafting challenge. So really, I can't imagine many more things that are a better exemplification of a portrait. And then there's Tanner Clark, who received the award from Kiwanis Club. He was he's a member of the FFA chapter in Oregon High School, and he was presented the Lewis S. Sassman Award by Gerald Sowich, president-elect of the Kiwanis Club of Downtown Madison. And they're joined by Abe Aberly, chair of the Kiwanis Club's Agriculture, Conservation, and Environment Committee. This award is given to an outstanding student from each of the FFA chapters in the Dane County High Schools. Mr. Sassman was the state supervisor for vocational education for 36 years and has been a member of the Kiwanis Club of Downtown Madison for over 40. Congratulations, Tanner. That's a wonderful honor. And then we had some fun things in the podcast this week. Well, the fun thing was Upham Woods. The not so fun thing is safety. But I'd also say the safety discussion was extremely important with School Resource Officer Kyle Shuey speaking about things that we can do or parents can do to help keep their children safe. And then Katie Smart from the Be Smart organization spoke specifically about how to make sure that it becomes very normalized when your child is going somewhere to play, asking parents, do you have weapons? And if you do, are they locked up? That should be a normal question that we ask and we offer so that it becomes a part of the conversation. And then the Upham Woods kids, that was an awful lot of fun. So when you hear them talking about the experience they had there and the team challenges and what they took away from it, it was a golden conversation. And I think one of the young people in the podcast spoke about the importance of listening to your teachers and dressing properly for the weather. And I thought, oh my goodness, if that's what they took away, that was completely worth the trip. That's a big one. There we go.
Awesome. I love these. And, tonight, in terms of the special message, kindness is a habit. And working in partnership with our families and our educators and really emphasizing being kind to people. And also, what they say in terms of elevated maturity is being just as happy for other people's successes as you are for your own. And for those 45 kids to go see Elliot perform, that is so cool. That's just things that we're embracing and emphasizing in this school district, which is super important and just as important as math and reading. And so it just makes me really proud. So, all right, moving on to closing. Future agenda, we are not meeting on the 25th, so the next time we will be together will be April 8th. And then we will move into checkout. So I'll go around the horn and see if anyone has anything for checkout. Leslie. Caleb. Anna. Mary. I'm good, thank you. Heather.
Am I on? Yes. First, I just wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Morvitz because I think he brought that idea with him from RCI for all of the fifth graders to draw themselves, and shout out to them, to all of the fifth grade team, because each classroom did it. So it was very cool to walk around to see that. And Noah would not forgive me if I said he spent, his words, he really spent a lot of time on the shirt and then realized that he had to draw his head, and he's like, it didn't maybe look as much like him as he wanted it to. So I think
So fashion was really important to your child?
Really,
Okay, got it.
fashion was important to my child. More so the swim club attention, but his head not so much. But also, just while I'm talking about fifth grade, and it's not because I have second grade tomorrow, so no offense to second grade, but the student-led conferences this just on Thursday were just absolutely mind-blowing. They're always great, and it's always wonderful to hear teacher input, but to have your child lead you through what they're doing and what they like and what they don't like about academics or what their strengths are is just a true joy. And so I really appreciate that. And then the last thing I'll say is, Krista touched on it, but I was just thinking about this the superintendent report is, we're definitely touching on all of these academic things, and they're super important, but also just the kindness and the SEL and the community. And I keep thinking about whole child in equals whole child out, right? And that is such a testament to that. So yeah, thanks.
Troy. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned at 8:38. Thanks, everybody.
The Panthers have not done a great job of so far this year, but they will look to do the little things tonight, shooting free